Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle. Once again, it is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state, South Carolina and beyond. Listen to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands. Heard around the world on the iHeartRadio application. Downloaded today. It's free. Our website, put the .com on it. Doggone it. That's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. And again, thank you for hanging out with us here on a Wednesday afternoon. Hump day, college football right around the corner. Got some Florida State, Louisville action this week on the docket in the ACC. Clemson will take on Louisiana Tech at home. La Tech coming to town. The Bulldogs and Tigers hooking up. Maybe a premonition to a matchup in the college football playoffs between perhaps the Clemson Tigers and the Georgia Bulldogs. 803-450-0086. There you go. Get in where you fit in. Great content over on our website. We have had, as Dabo Swanny might appreciate, relentless effort in putting out content for you on our website. So I would encourage you, if you get time, to go check that out. It is a lot of incredible content, including an article up today. Brandon Streeter saying that DJ Uiagalelei is getting better at a lot of things. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But also the comment and the reason for the heading today, freshman wide receiver Antonio Williams, quote, has no fear heading into the Louisiana Tech game, has no fear since he's been at Clemson. The shifty wide receiver from the Midlands over at Dutch Fork High School hasn't exploded, quote unquote, on the scene just yet, but I think there is potential that you could see his role improving. Obviously, there's a lot of optimism around Adam Randall, another freshman at wide receiver, and Dabo Swanny made an interesting point during his press conference with the media earlier this week. He brought up the fact that, like, there's this belief that Clemson is deep at wide receivers in terms of experience. And that simply has not been the case. And Dabo Swanny pointed that out, saying, hey, we have one guy, Ngata, and how much football has he played? And when you think about Joe Ngata, that's what you think about. Injury prone, a guy who has been out quite a bit during his time at Clemson. And so, with that in mind, Sweeney's right. This group, they might be deep and talented, but they're not overly experienced. He said it's not like Ngata's a T. Higgins on his third year. He's an older guy, but he doesn't have a lot of experience, which is why I think this coaching staff believes that Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, some of these young guys have opportunities. And I saw a little hate. And I'm just going to call it, for what it is. I saw a little hate tweeted to us about E.J. Williams. Last year, E.J. was banged up, dealt with the injury to his hand, if I recall correctly. I mean, he's had a couple of things going on there. And, I think this is unfortunate for a lot of these guys because when they are compared to their contemporaries, when they're compared to guys who just recently played, it is hard to measure up to that standard. And so because there's no gap, if you will, between the timeline of the T. Higgins and the Justin Rosses of the world and this group, the criticism of these players, if they don't just make incredible play after incredible play after incredible play, is much greater than maybe it once was. Like if you could take E.J. Williams, I almost said Antonio Williams, but if you could take an E.J. Williams, okay, and then compare him to wide receivers at Clemson in the 90s, then when you talk about how you feel about, what he's done or what you expected of him, I think it changes. The other thing that's really hurt, I think, some of these younger guys is the success that you saw from players like Sammy Watkins so early in their career. And so the expectation for how quickly a guy should develop and a guy should contribute and all of those things has been enhanced. I mean, it's a microwave mentality when it comes down to the impact that you want and need from guys earlier and earlier in their career. And honestly, now when you have a guy who is in his third year, if he's not producing, then you feel like, man, maybe this guy is a miss on the recruiting trail. I mean, and it's just kind of fast forwarded that entire timeline. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. But to give you an example, Antonio Williams at this point has the most receptions on the team, tied with Bo Collins with 7. He's got the second most yardage on the team behind Bo Collins. He's got 76 yards on 7 receptions and is averaging 10.9 yards per reception. Now, again, that's greater than Ngata. That's greater than E.J. Williams. That's greater than Brandon Spector. That's greater than every Clemson wide receiver not named Bo Collins. And so with that comes a twofold conversation. First, the one we just mentioned, right? Like, your expectations are through the roof for guys, and if they're not performing at a high level by year 2, you probably become concerned. And if they're not contributing at a high level by year 3, then you've got like a red flag. So Dakari Collins, who showed so much promise a year ago, this season, 1 reception for 8 yards. In his career, 17 receptions for 229. So you can see how quickly Antonio Williams is advancing. Again, more of a slot guy, a shifty guy, an elusive guy, a fast guy, burst guy. I mean, he's kind of what Clemson's been missing, in my opinion, at wide receiver the past couple of seasons. And has the ability, in my estimation, to be an impactful player this year and early for Clemson moving forward. The other kind of thing that I hear there carries me towards the quarterback spot. So a wide receiver who comes on, plays better than expected, gives some life to a Clemson Tiger passing game that has, I will hesitate to call it a lifeless passing game, but it's been an underwhelming passing game. Could he help spark a little no fear factor for DJ Uiagalelei? Confidence for DJ is paramount. And we have talked about that a lot here on the program this season. And this past weekend's matchup against Furman, there is no doubt it presented an opportunity for DJ to get and gain more confidence in himself and his teammates. But I am convinced that as we roll along through this season, it could fall on the shoulders of some of these younger wide receivers incredibly to make a catch, turn that 50-50 ball into an 80-20, make a play, even when DJ maybe is off a little bit, that bolsters Uiagalelei's confidence in himself and his teammates, because the reality of what you've seen from DJ in the past couple of seasons, to me, has come down a lot to DJ, but he hadn't gotten a ton of help. And I know that recognizing that fact alone is difficult because DJ is compared to his contemporaries, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. And eventually, and I've always said this, and it's probably the testament to Alabama and Clemson and other programs, Ohio State at the top of college football. As a fan base, you have to kind of shift your perception. You have to have what Stephen Covey would have called a paradigm shift. And you have to start recognizing and seeing that you can't always recruit a better guy. Eventually, when you get a player the likes of a Trevor Lawrence, the next guy's he's just not going to be as good. South Carolina fans, you know this from having a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who was flabbergasted they retired his jersey ahead of greats in Columbia, like Marcus Lattimore, Connor Shaw. I mean, I could go through a list of other players that probably deserved it more. But Clowney was not only the number one pick in the NFL draft, he's one of the most freakishly talented players that anybody's ever seen at the defensive end position in college football. And consequently, you know what that means, Gamecock Nation? Here we are 8-9 years after his playing days. I think he committed to Carolina in, I can't remember now. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. But my point is, here we are, 7-8 years after that. You still have never had a defensive end better than Jadeveon Clowney, and you may never. And so that means Clemson fans, you might have to swallow this bitter pill down during the show today. There is a possibility that Trevor Lawrence is the greatest quarterback that you will ever have at your school. Now, what's amazing about saying that is there are some of you that go, oh, well, Swanny, he wasn't even the greatest. It was Deshaun Watson. And if I had to win a game, I would take Deshaun Watson. But when I think about, Trevor as a pure quarterback in that capacity, I think he's the greatest quarterback that's ever played at Clemson. If we wanted to say that you think Deshaun Watson is the greatest winner or the quarterback most likely to win you a game, I can't deny that, because there's some things that Deshaun Watson did with his feet throughout his career that, Trevor Lawrence didn't do. Now, Lawrence had his moments with his legs, some of his big moments. That game against Ohio State, in the Fiesta Bowl, Lawrence, like a baby giraffe out in on the Saharan desert or whatever, just racing past Ohio State defenders was, awesome and fun and electric. But if you just take it for what it's worth, best quarterback, I think it's Trevor. And I think the measure of that's the fact that he went number one in the draft. And so from that standpoint, as I'm being invaded here in studio by the old man, Ali, our 16-year-old cat, and then I've got like our 16-week stray that wandered into the garage. It looks ironically just like Ali when he was a kitten. These two have come into the studio. They have commandeered the studio. This is an official alert. The cats are in the building. Nonetheless, I think for Clemson Tiger fans, I think for, everybody that's kind of seen this team mature, and I don't mean this 2020 group, I just mean this program, mature to the point of where they are consistently competing for the college football playoff and being in that conversation, you have to recognize that at some point, the greatest you've ever had or the greatest that you ever will have at certain positions have already been there. And so it skews your expectations for what could be or should be with your team in 2022. 803-450-0086. If you're wondering why I'm laughing, if you're watching the video right now, I'm doing my best to keep things together here, but the old man is currently brushing whatever you rub, leaving his scent or whatever they do on the screen that you guys are watching. Now he's hitting the microphone. Thank you, Ali, for your I appreciate you being such a fan of the show that you decided that you wanted to come up here and just get a word in edgewise. Ali and Moon, they know I'm talking about tigers, a feline species. They can't help but come up and give some of their insight. Stop biting the mic. Stop it. Ali is out of control today, folks. He is like, what Cat's age at, I know dogs will like, 6-7 years. So Ali is 16. So if you go with the dog year deal, he's ancient. So I'm not even sure he knows what he's doing right now. Ali, do you realize you're pushing my microphone? You're messing with me here, kid. And I'm trying to do it live. Doing it live. 803-450-0086. Ali's like 112 in human years. So you'll excuse him if he's he's a little frisky. He's a little excited to be here. I'm excited he's here too, hanging out with me. No kidding you. But back to the lecture at hand as we pull it all together here at the end of the first segment. Two things from my perspective, and I'm still getting over my little cough. So I'm not going to keep the live video rolling much longer. Number one, I think expectations and judging them and judging players is much more difficult now for Clemson Tiger faithful than it was 10 years ago. And number two, I think that having a more confident wide receiver group should create a more confident quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei. Because I think if DJ is confident, then I honestly believe that he will be more apt to make better throws, and he'll feel so much better. Which, when you are hesitant, reluctant, nervous, whatever, it's hard to play your best ball. And so hopefully some of that no fear factor from a guy like Antonio Williams at wide receiver will help DJ Uiagalelei play his best football as we move forward. And you don't need to be playing your best football weeks 1, 2, and 3. Like that between says, you just want to get better. You want to play your best ball at the end. So let's see what the strides are over the next couple of weeks as Clemson gets into Wake Forest, NC State, etc. With a break, we'll come back with more right after this.